So, have you ever been frustrated? Well, I want to tell you something. It happens to me too. Just the other day, I was in Pullum Park in Raleigh, North Carolina, trying to build some content, some spiritual content, some disciple building content for our congregation. And I had this brilliant idea, this lesson that I had prepared, but I wanted to get into a different kind of environment. I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to kind of get into a more aesthetic space, if that makes sense, so that I could share my story in a different environment, so that I could teach in a different space to kind of help make the point that I was trying to teach. And boy, the enemy showed up just like he does in a lot of situations in life. The enemy showed up and he frustrated me to the 10th degree. I mean, quite literally, every time I tried to set the camera up, about 3 minutes after pressing record, I'll be in the middle of the message and the camera would just shut off from overheating. And after the 4th time of trying to do this, let me tell you something. I was in a situation where I wanted to hurt somebody. Listen, the preacher wanted to inflict pain because of the frustration that I was going through in that moment. It made me so angry. And it's funny because I was trying to do the faithful thing. I was trying to do the right thing. I was going the extra mile. I was trying to give God all that I have. And I want to ask you a question. Have you ever been trying to give God all you had and it still didn't work out the way you planned? Listen, family, sometimes in life, what we plan is not according to God's purpose. See, I had in my own mind what I planned to do when I got to that part. But here's the beauty in this story. But before I tell you, let me give you some context. One of the things that I learned to do in the pandemic was produce content. And I took what I learned to do to get the church through the pandemic and flip that into a business of my own. I literally became a professional photographer where I started a business. I did mostly sports-based content, but I got into photography and videography, and I was able to make a living doing it. And I did the best that I could, and I was able to supplement my income from the church during the pandemic and even build on that. And I had multiple schools, about a dozen schools that I work with to produce content for their sports programs. And I work with clients from nonprofits to individual corporate businesses, and I did really, really well. But when I moved here to North Carolina, I don't have the same kind of flexibility. But the reason why I started doing it is because little did I know I had a passion for it. And God turned my passion into a profit. But I needed to give the church my all here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And here's what happened. What happened was I don't have a client base here. I'm trying to get my footing in the ministry that I'm serving here in Raleigh. And I'm focusing on that. And I'm trying to use the gift that God has given me to produce content, to take photos, to do videos, and create all this stuff for this congregation. And really, that's why I was at the park in the first place. But my plan was not being productive. I got so frustrated that I decided to quit. Don't look at me like that. You've been frustrated trying to do the right thing and decided to quit too. I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not in here by myself. I mean, I am in here by myself, but I'm not in here by myself. I'm not the only one who has ever been through that. But in my frustration, God turned it into an opportunity for an invitation. So here's what happened. I decided to quit. I said, I'm not going to do this today. It's not going to work. The equipment is failing. It's too hot for the equipment, and it's just not going to work. But I'm not going to waste this beautiful evening. I'm going to go take a walk and try to cool myself off before I go home. I ain't need to take the attitude that I got from my plan not working home. So I decided to walk it off. So I was walking it off, and right at the time where the frustration was subsiding, I saw this young family who apparently had a daughter who was graduating from NC State. And when I saw her, it was like a light bulb went off, because all of a sudden I saw all of these graduates walk around the park taking pictures. They all had their professional photographers, but there's this one family that had several family members out there celebrating, but all they had was their iPhone. And the Spirit pushed me in their direction, if that makes sense. The Spirit led me in their direction. And I walked up to them and I said, hey, listen, I used to do some photography. I had a plan in the park. It's not really coming together, but I have this equipment that I can use for this purpose. If you don't mind, I'd like to take you some photos, do a little graduation photo shoot for you, free of charge, absolutely. And they were like, well, how much is it gonna cost? I said, no. I used to do it for a living, but I wanna do this for you free of charge. You guys look like some great people. You're celebrating a great occasion. I see your daughter's done well. I mean, I think she graduated summa cum laude. I mean, she had all these cords and medals and all kinds of stuff that suggested that she had done so great in school, and all they had was a camera. Now, their phone can do the job, but not to the same degree that a professional camera can. So I just asked them, and of course, the mother started crying. She was so excited that she wanted to do this for her family, but for whatever reason, they hadn't prepared for it. And all of a sudden, the Lord, she said, put a photographer right in their lap. And I kind of laughed because sometimes we can't see what God is doing. And here's where the story turned. I didn't tell them that I was a preacher. I just told them that I just recently relocated to the area, and I used to be a photographer, and if they didn't mind, I would take some photos and send them to them free of charge. And so as I'm working with this young lady and trying to get her a quick photo shoot done, of course, the father strikes up a conversation. And here's what he said. He said, listen, you told me that you used to be a photographer, so what do you do now? And I said, I preach for this church on Brooks Avenue called Brooks Avenue Church of Christ. He said, Brooks Avenue. He's snapping his fingers trying to figure out where he knows that from. His daughter lives on the street of our church. I said, look at God. Here in this moment, he gave me an opportunity to be kind to some people that I did not know and open the door for me to extend an invitation. And so listen, I want you to watch what I produced for them, and I'll tell you how the story unfolds. So listen, look, it wasn't planned, it wasn't prepared, I didn't expect to do it, but this is what I could do in the 5 or 10 minutes that I had with them. And they were so excited. So after I finished taking the photos, the father said, man, what can I do for you? I appreciate you doing this. I said, man, listen, I told you it's no charge. You don't have to do anything for me. But if you want to do something, I would love for you to be my guest at the Brooks Avenue Church of Christ. Of course, the next day was graduation. They weren't able to come, but he promised me he and his entire family would come. The young lady and her boyfriend were excited that they found a church that was close to home. And the father also said, not only are we going to come and visit your church, but we're also going to give to a ministry in your church of your choice. Now, I'm not trying to paint myself out to be some superhero. Here's what I am saying, though. Out of my frustration, God gave me an opportunity to extend an invitation. And so what do I want to say to you? Listen, you never know what God is up to. So even when you get frustrated, just walk it off and trust that God's plan will prevail. That's the point. That's the point of the story. Not that I was somebody who was super spiritual who used an opportunity to extend somebody an invitation. No, that's not what it's about at all. It's about how God used my frustration to put me in the right place at the right time to extend an invitation. And I can't wait to be able to tell you how this story ends.